bit too close, don't you think? What's up, everyone? I'm Janine the Alchemist, and welcome back to my channel. I've been teaching yoga for coming on 12 years now, and I thought that I would make one of those things I wish I knew before becoming a yoga teacher videos, but to tell you the truth, there's nothing that I wish I knew, because everything about this profession and this lifestyle is about the journey. So there is nothing that I've learned on this, whether it be painful, embarrassing, whatever, there's nothing that I regret and wish I knew beforehand. However, I do think it's important to just address any questions that people may have, or to at least speak on my experience so far as a yoga teacher. Things are changing for me right now. I'm in a very interesting and different sort of place as a yoga teacher at the moment, since I am taking this pause to reflect on the things that I have learned and reflect on what do I take away from this experience, especially since I am now moving into an entirely new phase of my life. Who knows what's to come, and I'm so excited. So if you are trying to figure out if you should take a yoga training, then this video is for you. Now, I'm just gonna give a quick disclaimer. I'm gonna talk to you as if we are just buddies, okay? I'm gonna talk to you friend to friend here. This can sometimes be a sensitive subject. There's a lot of variety when it comes to the yoga teacher world, and I get that, but I really want to speak on my personal experience as a yoga teacher and my relationship to yoga so far, because I think it's important. I have always strived to just sort of upload videos that are free for people to just understand the basics of yoga, because I just think that there are some things that should be free for everyone, and so therefore I want to really be open with you, and I'm so sorry if any of the things I say are a little triggering or off-putting. I recognize that my point of view is not the only point of view, and anything negative I say is not at all representative of the greater whole of the experiences that other people have. Everyone's different, and there are going to be things that are right for other people that are not right for me or right for you. You get my drift. I've always tried to make this channel a place that's a little bit more informal at times, just because I want to be real with you, which is actually a huge reason the yoga videos I've uploaded have been just kind of at home. That was a very intentional decision. Ever since like 9 years ago, someone showed me this video called Mommy and Baby Yoga, and it's so disgusting. I'm not going to show a clip from it. You can look it up if you want to, but it's this woman basically throwing around her baby. It makes me sick to even think about right now, and that is actually why I made a yoga video, like a mommy and me video on this channel. It's because I just wanted people to know that other thing was not yoga, and that this is what mommy and baby yoga should look like and what it should be. I had no idea that I would end up in this niche of mommy and me yoga. I was just going with the flow of my own journey, and every single video that I upload is really just either a time capsule for me, or it's a bit of information that I feel like I know well enough to at least share with the greater collective. So in the spirit of being less formal and just be more like man-to-man, one-on-one, like really just being honest with you, I'm just gonna speak to you like I would tell a friend if a friend approached me about wanting to do a teacher training and was asking me about it, because I think that there's a place for that here on the internet. So I'm gonna be a little bit like less professional, let's say, even though oftentimes it's pretty important for my personal career to be a little bit more professional. This is just one of those things where I don't really want to sugarcoat things, you know? So again, I'm really, really, really sorry if anything I say is upsetting to you. Just know that I know all the good things. I have felt it, and we've all felt it. I know how beneficial this lifestyle is, and I will continue on this lifestyle. But there are going to be some things I say that maybe are a little bit emotionally charged and could be, you know, like on the negative end of things. So just had to say all of that to make my point, and let's just get right into the video. So I'm just going to kind of start from the beginning, I guess, of my yoga journey, just so that you can get to know like where I'm coming from. So I live in the US. I am a Southern California native, and I have been practicing yoga since I was 17 years old. I used to just kind of force all my friends to do yoga and Pilates with me, and I would tempt them with things like getting the best prom bod and things like that. But the true reason that I practiced yoga is that in the solitude of whenever my parents weren't home, I found their old yoga tapes and I would practice them, and there was nothing like the feeling that I experienced when I was in Shavasana. There was no level of acceptance. I had never been introduced to that level of acceptance and the mindset that yoga teaches. I grew up in a very fast-paced world like most of us do, and there were a lot of pressures on me at school and in my personal relationships, and I was pretty burnt out and pretty stretched thin. And I had sort of been through quite a lot at a young age. When I got into college, I ended up feeling like there was a point where my schooling was not benefiting me. I am in complete support of education. I even plan on getting further education now, but I'm just telling you where I was at when I was a young adult. So there was a point at school where I just felt like I was a self-starter. I was someone who had a lot of jobs, and I stopped, as someone who paid for my own college, I just stopped seeing how school was benefiting me at the time. And so I dropped out. And I remember pitching this idea to my parents, essentially just saying that I'm dropping out of school, and what I am going to do is I'm going to join a yoga teacher training. And that was something that at the time, and I am still grateful for, that I was just so, it was so important to me, and it was so necessary for where I was at, and I was very serious about it. And so I wasn't just going to go into this and mess around with my life. It was my plan to really go into this and really make this my lifestyle, because yoga and its teachings had changed my life and really helped me through some difficult times. I remember graduating from that teacher training when I was 19 years old. I was so focused and so interested in the philosophy. I had grown up super religious, and there were just things about the world that I had a thirst for learning and felt just so called in that direction. This, of course, stirred up quite a bit of alienation that I was unaware of at the time that I was so young. I didn't know that pursuing this was going to tear me away from some relationships, was going to put some sort of label on me with people at church. Like, I didn't know any of that stuff. I just knew that this thing has helped me, and I wanted to help others. I just remember that first 200-hour teacher training, I would never take it back. Never take it back, because in my opinion, if you feel called, so the short answer here is yes, if you feel called, do it, but please listen to the end of this video, because there's a lot about it that I didn't know and that I feel like might help you. If you feel called, absolutely 100% yes. I didn't know about I completely forgot about how much people got bothered by the subject of yoga, or how much people made fun of yoga, until I got a TikTok. I had forgotten all about that stuff, because I was just on a healing path, and I was determined to do what was best for my health and see if there was any way that I could give my love back out to the community. But I have noticed on TikTok recently that there have been a lot of people who are actually from India kind of making fun of Americans who go get a teacher training, Americans who go to Bali and have a spiritual experience, or or they make fun of the way that we practice yoga, which is in fact quite different than the way that they practice out there. I totally understand all of that in hindsight, and I kind of had an idea about those things back then, but I'm still gonna say yes despite that type of criticism, because I truly believe that it was a blessing to the West that was brought over from the East. I am eternally grateful for those who brought the practice over to the West in order to help us expand and help us out a little bit. Even if it may be a little bit imperfect, I do think that no matter what level you're at, no matter what part of understanding you are about the body, the nervous system, and the mental space, or even if you get more into the spiritual practices, I think no matter where you're at, it can be beneficial because it just is so good for you. I believe that I was able to move through the world in a more effective way and get done things that I probably would never have been able to have gotten done without it. I am forever grateful for the energy and the willpower and the passion that yoga taught me and fueled in me. I remember being in my first 200-hour teacher training, and this was through a larger organization that was very well respected. It actually closed down during COVID, but I'll get to that later. But I was trained through a pretty prestigious program, and I'm very grateful for my experience. If you're thinking about having a teacher training experience, I don't know how many trainings offer this anymore ever since COVID and ever since everything has sort of gone more digital. But the experience that I was able to have was I was able to go down to my local yoga studio and then the other franchises of that studio throughout Los Angeles, and I was able to really go and learn and have all of the other trainees with me, and it was just a very, very intimate, profound, close-knit group. Even my husband, with the teacher trainings he eventually took, they were all digital, but I know now for him there are ways that he has been able to get involved with his teacher and go and meet the other teacher trainees and practice together. So if you are going to do a training, I want you to know that yes, it is a beautiful and profound experience to be in an intimate group like that in a way that you would not be with a group like that otherwise. Like if you go on like a retreat or something. And I've noticed that there are things that you're able to say in those groups and do in those groups and experience together in those groups that last a long time, even if you don't see those people anymore. That was something beautiful to me. One thing that I do think is quite funny is because I was so young, I asked a million questions, and I see now in hindsight that that was probably quite irritating and I probably talked too much, but I was just really heart open, ready for I was open to learning whatever it is I needed to learn, and I was not afraid to ask questions of everyone and treat every experience like a learning experience, no matter how embarrassing the question. And I don't regret the questions that I asked, because since I did grow up in a religious background, I asked a lot of philosophical questions. I just really wanted to understand, and I remember it being kind of like strange to some of the people in the trainings, because oftentimes people do a yoga training, in my experience anyway, when they're a little bit older than I was. I did get a sense that people, if you're thinking about getting a training and you're younger, I do think I had to earn respect from my peers and my students because of just being young. People assume that you have a lack of life experience, which was the case in some ways and wasn't the case in others, but I digress. So anyway, I just remember that during my 200-hour training, they had the lights dim and I was laying back, maybe it was in Shavasana or in a pose, and I remembered the teacher, my trainer, saying that this is not about what it looks like. This is not about performing or looking like the person next to you, and it was more about your own experience and accepting the way that your body, the pace at which your body breathes, going at your own pace and really feeling what you need, and whatever that is, that's okay to meet yourself where you actually are at, and there's no competition. I remember that I broke down sobbing, and I'm gonna sob now if I don't stop myself. I know, I'm always crying, right? That's what happens when you get so in touch with your emotions. That right there is the entire reason that I'm a teacher. Because of the way the society in which I grew up and the particular difficulties that I've had to go through in life, that message right there was something that I needed to, I just wanted more of, and it's why I became a teacher. I wanted to support other people and give that to them and give them a space for that I felt like I hadn't had. And I wanted to just learn more about myself and be open to having to shed whatever flaws or ego or whatever it might be. I'm sure that you can relate to this. Anyone who feels called to yoga, there is some sort of story like this. So anyway, I taught everywhere that I could. I remember I taught, I don't know, like college students in the park, free if you bring a friend, elderly people in their homes, teaching at gyms. Gyms are a great place to work, by the way, when you're first starting out, in order to get a good sense of like different types of bodies. I feel like in the beginning, everything I did, it's exactly what you need to do in order to gain experience. You know, we have to throw ourselves out there, work where we can, teaching whomever in order to learn and grow. And that's just like what everyone has to do when they're developing their craft. You have to be willing to kind of, you know, put your hours in and get that experience. I mean, I got to work at Spectrum. I really enjoyed that, though I really had to be humble in that experience because they had a much more experienced teacher there before me, and I was still finding my voice as a teacher. I got fired from a job I really enjoyed at a like Krav Maga type climbing gym when I got pregnant. But I was young and didn't really know any better to fight against that, and I also was pregnant and ready for the next phase of my life. When I had my first child, it was a little bit traumatizing, but I really believe that my yoga practice got me through it, that it helped me have the tools I needed in order to get through some really stressful times. And I want to tell you, being a yoga teacher as a new parent was really humbling because I constantly didn't feel good enough, because I feel like I always had to exude a sort of air that showed that I was a great mom because I'm a yoga teacher, but that was like far from the case. I have had so many breaking points. I'm sure my neighbors back in the day could have told you. I'm just like everyone else, obviously. Like however stressful and traumatizing it was to have a baby at 21 when all my friends were off doing all sorts of things, traveling, going to college. Even though those things were a little bit difficult, like I just had so much love for my son, and I'm just so grateful that we were able to have that special time together. And same with my daughter. I did my 300-hour, my second teacher training, so altogether I'm 500 hours trained. And then after, like over COVID, I got a yin yoga training and things like that. But anyway, when I was pregnant with my second, I did my 300-hour teacher training, and that was a more intensive, more advanced understanding of teaching yoga. That was the easiest pregnancy too. Luckily, I was able to practice while pregnant with her. It's not always the way it feels. It certainly didn't feel like that for the other two. Thank God I was in my early 20s so that I was not too embarrassed to ask stupid questions. Now, fast forward, I've now had 3 kids. I've had a few more life-changing experiences between 26 and 29 years old. It was all flowers, butterflies, and the thing that really was just the focal point of my interest and how I knew I was gonna help people in the world was teaching them about mindfulness, because of all the anxiety everybody has. I just feel like I needed to be a part of this movement that helps everyone with this crazy anxiety we all have. I remember the moment where I finally felt like a pretty competent teacher, where I was pretty proud of the way that I taught, and it wasn't until I actually got an injury. I injured my pelvis when I was pregnant with my third. I fell. I've already told the story multiple times, but anyway, some of the things I talk about in this video you may have heard before. But pretty much when I was heavily pregnant with my third, I was sitting in a hammock that like unhooked while I was sitting on it, and I landed smack on my tailbone on the bar on the ground, and I was bleeding everywhere, and it was a really scary thing. I almost fainted. The EMTs came. Oh my gosh. I was in Tennessee too, visiting family, And it was like, I was like, no, not today. Like that's one thing. It wasn't until I learned how to work with my pelvic and tailbone injury that I was able to really help people more. I think sometimes it's our injuries, like having sciatica or pregnancy. It's the things that have happened to us in our life that sometimes direct us toward the people that we are going to teach. So I didn't necessarily think at all that my career would have anything to do with children or pregnancy. I guess looking back at it with a more like clear lens as an adult. When I was younger, I used to be a respite care worker for special needs kids. I used to be a babysitter. I've always wanted to care for people. I love working with teens. These are all things but they were all vague. Like I didn't really know that what was going to happen, and pretty much my journey of helping people has sort of mirrored whatever is going on in my own life. That's just a little tip for you if you don't know what your expertise would be in, if you don't know what your niche is. Sometimes you could just let the natural things of life take you there. The whole time I was birthing, breastfeeding, I was teaching mommy and me's and prenatals, and I just self-taught, but there's plenty of great trainings out there now. But I mean, I did teach myself back then. There was a prenatal part of my training. So then during COVID, I started to pursue something I had always wanted to pursue, and that my husband actually encouraged me to pursue because I was kind of nervous. I had always had this vision in my mind, and I admit that I put this experience on a pedestal that someday everyone has to go on a yoga retreat and go study with a guru in order to truly understand. And to an extent, that's probably true. But anyway, as a stay-at-home mom at the time, when an opportunity came to study with a guru out here in Los Angeles, I took it. The guru is not in the body anymore, but he is one of the gurus that brought yoga to the States. And so I really enjoyed this experience. Over COVID, I deepened my understanding of meditation. Prior to that, I was meditating like 5 to 30 minutes a day, kind of all willy-nilly, and just trying to incorporate things I had picked up over time. But here I was really able to explore the meaning of discipline on a deeper level. And some of my perspectives were shattered. Not just that, but also just the way that the internet has brought more awareness to certain things. Because I was so young and just, when you get into a phase where something is really helping you and you just want to tell the world about it. Like people, when they have a phase, and I'm not going to necessarily call this a phase, but I'm saying like when people have something that excites them, that's helping them, and they just want to share it with the world, and sometimes they don't see the other aspects of it, right? So for me, when my prefrontal cortex actually finally formed, I turned 25, 26, and then I started the path with the guru, I realized that they don't even really, they do the asanas, of course, but they don't really see that as their yoga practice. It's more so their meditation practice. And I felt more called toward that, and that changed, that caused me to have more of a mind shift, because I found out before that it was more of my passion to teach meditation than it was to always be trying to create the best sequences or making sure that my body is the best demonstration of a pose, and making sure, that I look a certain way, or that I'm saying the Sanskrit and that I am teaching at this top tier level that's sexy and all these things. Don't get me wrong, I'm definitely loved the sexy aspect of modern practice, of modern Western practice, but that is nothing to do with what yoga actually is. I think we all know that. Now we're gonna kind of get into why I made this video. I just think, like, person to person, I want to tell you the things that I have encountered that I did not expect to encounter. When it comes to networking, I took business class in college, and there was a business portion of my yoga training. I remember in that training, they told me that I'm gonna need at least 300 followers to be seen by the bigger studios. And so I made that happen. I made it so I had at least 300 followers. In school, when I had first gotten interested in yoga, it was because you don't have to be perfect. you get to be honest with yourself about where your body's at, and you don't need to push past more than just a good challenge. You don't need to push yourself past where you need to push, and you don't need to force yourself into postures and positions in life that you don't need to be in. And I really thought it was important to live up to these ideals, and yet there was a constant pressure, especially with a more corporate yoga institution, to be more fake or to perform at levels that are more competitive. But I myself at the time didn't really believe in being competitive. And so sometimes I felt like I was compromising my ideals and what I really loved about yoga in order to make it in this industry. I'm sure a lot of you can relate. Now I want to be straightforward about a couple of things, okay? Just because this is a yogic type community, it does not mean that you are not going to find zealous religious types, you know? Just because you are in this community where the language is so much better and so much more healthy, in my opinion, and I appreciate it, by the way. Oh my gosh, like especially with business relationships, I'm so grateful that we are able to use this language that's kind of more productive and less manipulative. However, I do want to just say, because it's very important, there are so many people when you are networking. As soon as I got to the level that I had always had my eyes on, and it kind of just came out of nowhere, where suddenly I was working at all the places that I had goals to work at, teaching the types of classes I wanted to teach, having the world open to me to wherever it was I wanted to go, and I really had genuine relationships. I wasn't even like networking to network, like I just wanted to make friends. I was trying to be as genuine as possible and deliver the best quality, like whatever, service to people that I possibly could. And so there was like a naivety to me, especially since I was a stay-at-home mom and like out of the business world for a long time. When I re-immersed myself and started to gain more traction and started to gain more students and started to really enjoy the exchange I was having with people, there were more and more networking experiences where I have actually been put in situations, and this is why I'm making this video, I was put in situations that, because I was naive and open and ready for whatever the universe, you know, had to show me or give me, like most of us are, you know, like I was just open to whatever the universe had for me. I was so naive to certain situations, but you know, that's growing up. But so like, I'm pretty sure I was almost tried to be recruited into an orgy one time when I was at a private like tea set. Or, you know, there are times when you think people are genuine because of the speech that they're using, but they're really using a lot of emotional manipulation. There are a lot of MLMs you need to look out for, a lot. And there are people who are not trying to be your friend. They are just networking. They are just trying to boost their, like who sees them. They're just trying to boost their reputation and they're just trying to get their name out there. And kudos to them. I have met some badass, amazing people in this industry who I respect, but I've also met some sharks and some people who are just, they're just crocodiles, okay? And when you're young, or when you're first getting out there, and when I say first getting out there, I mean like I was still falling for this stuff at my 10-year mark. Whatever, I was just really trusting. And so there are experiences that happen with people where it's not necessarily like everyone is being malicious, but business has to go how business goes. There was a moment where I snapped. And this is why right now I'm not teaching at any studios since last year. I was totally okay with people kind of sexualizing me because I just didn't give energy to that behavior. I had learned from my teachers how to sort of set a sort of tone and respect for the space for people and ignore it when there was unnecessary like sexual attention on me. But there was a point when I started taking my somatics training where all of my traumas were out in the open and all of the irregulations in my nervous system that I had to learn about myself were kind of exposed. I was so sensitive that I was teaching class and I was sexualized yet again. Okay, I have a really big butt, okay, and I can't hide it, all right? I can't hide it, and that's all I'm gonna say about that. But there was yet another instance, and this is not the majority, but anyway, there was this moment that happened where it was like, this was at my 10-year, almost 11-year mark, okay, of teaching, and I was happy. I was working the jobs I wanted to work. I was making more of a figure that I wanted to be making, especially with private clients. I had started my doula work and I've incorporated yoga into that service. I was really feeling like I was giving back to the community in the way that I wanted to give back. But I had this one experience at a gym, and you know, like I said, I love gyms, but you know, they're gyms. They're not the same as studios. And I just had this moment where it's like, I'm not a stripper, and it was way too triggering for me, to the point where I stopped teaching in-person classes. There were enough instances where I was teaching at different studios, and it was like, I recognized the moment when I had outgrown something. There's a point when when I was making $25 an hour, $35 an hour for every class, and that was fine because I was gaining experience. But there was a moment where I really believe that with the level of time and work and dedication and love I put into this, that I needed to be getting paid more. And I started to outgrow places, and some studios were kind of making me feel bad. I was called a diva. As soon as something clicked, I was always a yes man, and then something clicked, and I was like, I'm not gonna show up to a class where I'm doing it for like almost nothing and then no one shows up. And it's normal practice to not show up to a class where where there's like no shows and stuff. You're not obligated to stay. It's like not by my training anyway. But whenever I started to realize what I have to give is worth more, I started to have negative reactions from people, which I totally understand, because there are some really great people who are putting these classes together and these studios together like out of pocket, and you know, they're doing what they can do. But that is another reason I wanted to give this video, is that there is like a culture in yoga teacher world where like it's all a service and you shouldn't make any money, but I just don't think that's true. I just wish yoga teachers were paid more. And I'm saying that more for the friends of mine that I have, and just caring for yogis in general, that yes, it is something that we give, but there's only so much you can give before you're empty and then you have nothing left, so it's not very sustainable. So that's something to keep in mind, is that it's known that yoga teachers don't really make that much, but I want you to know right now that's not the case. It doesn't need to be the case, because we have the freedom to be freelance. There's a lot of ways that you can kind of go it on your own. If you're going to put the work in anyway to pull students for studios, if the studios are not pulling in students for you, you can pull in your students. If you're going to have to put the work in anyway on social media and put all the energy into it, then you may as well cut out the middleman completely and host your own classes and take your own payments. It just depends. Do you have a good community near you that you love and that you want to be around and that you want to give to? Or are you kind of on your own, and then you know you're not really able to sustain? So you need to weigh all these different options. Another thing to consider, also going back to that I think I was like almost recruited into like an orgy cult by accident, because I was so open and just like, you know, as most people are when they get into trainings, they're just so trusting of the journey, which is beautiful. But there are those, do not forget, there are those that take advantage of that, okay? And that's another reason why if you just wanted to take a training to deepen your yoga practice, that's totally worth it. But that's also why I strive to put things out for free here. Like I have one video out about like books you should read if you want to deepen your practice. There are so many resources online now. Like we've got Aloe, we've got so many things to where you can have your journey that you are taking yourself on without becoming a yoga teacher. So there's like, I just want you to know the options, okay? Because my answer is yes, do the training, but be aware there are just so many people ready to profit off of your vulnerability and your openness. I just did an interview recently with Harmonic Atheist, and I was reading the comments, and people were saying it was all about how I had like kind of where I've landed spiritually now. But there was a comment saying like, thank goodness, like Buddhism type Eastern thought that these types of negative things don't happen. That's not true. Anything that can be a religion, and yoga is not a religion, but anything that can feed off of your vulnerabilities and your spirituality can take advantage of you. And so that's a reason I'm making this video, is I want you to understand that have your journey, have a fool's mindset, be open, learn, and never stop learning from those experiences, never stop. But don't forget to protect yourself, and don't forget that you don't always have to pay someone $2,000 to teach you something. Just remember that you have to be your own advocate in this field. You have to be the one to know your worth, okay? You have to be the one to see where you're at. When you're a beginner, get as many opportunities as you possibly can, for sure, but don't forget your worth, and try not to be like too much of like fan behavior. There are so many yoga teachers out there that have a huge following, and a lot of them I love. I'm a fan myself, but I'm saying like be wary of having heroes. Be wary of being a fan to people. Remember why you are doing this in the first place. Remember what the path is that you are on is. Even if you don't know where this path is going, as none of us do, and I plan to be on this path for a very long time, even if I ever stopped teaching yoga, this is my path. A deeper level of understanding of myself and of people, and how can I serve others in a genuine, real way. Always keep learning. Do not stagnate. And do the teachers that you follow know anything about the, what originally yoga was or is? What are their personal practices like, and how much do those align with your practices? Those are things to consider when you pick a teacher. Consider their energy and whether or not you want to be like that teacher. And, all of us come into a strange place when it comes to our ego here, because when you become a teacher and you become loved, there is like that aspect of having followers, and that's not what the path is about. It's certainly not my goal to become a guru, because yoga teachers are not gurus, and I'm just not interested in that. But the point is, there are people out there who want to be a guru. There are people out there who want to be Jesus fucking Christ. And you need to be aware of that. And I might be speaking largely from my experience here in Los Angeles, because there's a lot of stuff going on out here. There's like new age stuff. There's all kinds of things going on. There's all kinds of healing modalities, and you might discover that no matter where you are. That for you it might be yoga, for someone else it's Reiki, for someone else it's massage, for someone else it's Kung Fu or whatever. But just, I want to bring in the element of like, there's a humility. Yes, we all come in contact with our ego in the practice. Yes, we have to continuously ask ourselves, why am I doing this? Yes, we have to do the shadow work. Yes, we have to do the work on our nervous system, on our microbiome, on our digestive. All of us, this is a journey when it comes to health and healing, with all of it. In my opinion, overall, this is a service. Business things, if you're not a business person, if you're not a self-starter, this might be hard for you if you want to make money. My advice is to practice and study. Have a private practice. You can go to classes, but also have a private practice. You can do online classes, but also have a private practice where you're honest with you. Have a journal where you're honest with your fucking self. There's a lot of egos out there. Look out. There's a lot of people operating from their trauma. It might be you. It might have been me. But we learn. Every person that comes in contact with us is a teacher. Every student. And if this sounds like it's in line with your beliefs, yes, get the training. Get the training. Know that you're going to learn some things that aren't good, but that's just part of it. Be really careful of turning yoga into your identity. I didn't think I had turned it into my identity until during COVID, and I was having like I was meditating every day. It was crazy. I had all these really profound insights that changed the way that I was thinking about life. And also it's normal. It's what most people would call like a Saturn return, or just I was going from like when I turned 29, like I just had so many crises. Like even before that, with the election and everything kind of traumatizing me and causing me to challenge because I was kind of more conservative back in the day. I'm still kind of conservative, but not, I don't know where to place myself politically. But the point is, the election was quite traumatizing for me, and also I had a friend of many years who I loved dearly tell me that for all these years she had actually been racist toward me and it had affected our friendship. Kudos to her for saying something about it, but it blew up my world. It was a domino effect of a spiral. You know, it was like a lot of stress turning 30 and like leaving my 20s behind, and it was just, I was at this precipice of all these life choices, and suddenly all these things that were easy in the practice became more complex, and I suddenly understood why we call it a practice in the first place. I understood that we practice these things to help us with these deeper depressions that happen and these deeper, you know, life's difficulties. And so I am forever grateful for the practice. Like I changed this channel from being a mommy and me yoga channel to just talking about the things that I think about, because that's what feels right to me. And I made my second channel to produce, I'm gonna produce some more high quality stuff. I'm pretty excited of yoga sequences that I'm gonna do, but I'm not gonna be the kind of channel that is busting out all these different sequences, because that's not what I'm about. I'll put together things that I know for sure help, and maybe I'll put out things here and there, but that's just not me. And maybe you don't know what is you yet. You know, I discovered that I'm good as a doula, that maybe in the future I'll incorporate more massage than I already do, or maybe I'll incorporate just like calisthenics. Like I will always use the things I've learned along the way, but I'm not gonna let it crush me like it once did at one point. If I walk away from teaching yoga the way I was always used to teaching it, because I've discovered what's actually for me, no, I'm actually gonna say thank you to this journey, because it is because of this work that I know myself so much better than I could have. And this is a lifelong path for me. So I don't know, I hope that the things that I said were in some way helpful. I'm not really sure like if I rambled in too many directions, but these were just things I was thinking about, and I wanted to convey them for anyone thinking about doing a yoga teacher training, or anyone who just wants to hear this so that they have someone that they can relate to if they've experienced any of these things. Like I said, I have so much respect for everyone in this community, especially anyone who puts their yoga teaching online. There are so many teachers on here that I respect and look up to. No matter where you're at, I would love to hear about your story in the comments as to why you watched this video and why you were even researching this, and whether or not you did decide to take your teacher training. Thank you so much again for watching. Like this video if it was at all helpful to you. Subscribe if you want more content like this, and I'll see you guys in my next video. And I'll say for this one last time on this channel, namaste.